Hi folks, welcome to The Way I Do It. My name is Chris. This is my Minneapolis Moline Jetstar 3 tractor. It's Memorial Day weekend 2023 and I'm going to get started with hay. So, we're going to fire this up, go connect to the hay bind and just try and mow grass. Let's get my Heston hay bind picked up out of the mud and get it hooked up, then we can go mow some hay. So we're all hooked up there. This is where it's pinned to hold it up in the air. Just going to pull the pin out. Keep the toolbox here, spare parts. There that goes. And there's the block it was sitting on, mud. So we're all hooked up here. It's always hard to remember which way these go, but today I got them right the first time, so we're all set. Just one more thing of concern is check the tires. It's good, and that's good. So let's get some hay down. Okay, let's see if this thing's gonna run. It's always been somewhat of a challenge the first few times around the field. You have to run the tractor in the grass, knocking over hay. Depending on how heavy the hay is, you have to slow down, speed up, make adjustments, watch for clogging, and turning around. It's the beginning. But once you've got the first few times around, cut and baled is really nice. Being early in the spring, still in May, the grass is a lot lighter and you can actually rake a couple windrows together real easy, so it makes this area a lot easier to manage. Some farmers, they call it the headlands, the outside of the field that you cut or plant to make it a working area. It's a place where you can turn your equipment around and hook and unhook wagons and whatnot. We always just called it the first couple of times around the field. So I'm not sure if headlands is really applicable. That's a scientific farming term. Mowing a field can be kind of a mindless job. You have to listen to your tractor, listen to the equipment, watch for obstacles and the animals. But it's not really unlike any other job. I've run machines in the past where you're inside. When you run a machine where you have to manually load and unload, you have to be aware of the sounds of the machine, the function. You put the part in, you take the part out. You got a lot of time to think, but you still have to watch what's going on. It's kind of the same here running this machine. Okay, I completed mowing the hay a couple of days ago. I cleaned up the yard. These are my chickens. The next step is to rake the hay. I have to get this Ferguson MF35 diesel operating. I've had a battery charger on it, so I should be able to just fire it up and let it go. The hay is looking really good. This time of year, this is Memorial Day weekend. Normally this time of year is wet. We have good days and bad days, but it's normally wet. Last year, for example, I fought wet ground. I cut the hay early. The ground still had water on it, and before I could get the hay baled, it rained. I ended up disposing of that hay. But right now, if you can see the ground, we have really dry patches. And it's really unusual for this time of year. You can see even some dead grass over here. But yeah, like I said, last year it was wet. So yeah, we'll get this tractor going. We'll take a look at the fuel situation. We're probably half a tank of fuel. Check water in the radiator, and it is above the core. I don't know if you can see it. Let's check the oil. Probably would be a good idea to change the oil. I see it's a quart low, but it looks good. So I'll throw in a quart of oil, and this thing should fire right up. So here's what I have for oil. It's a 10W30 from Pennzoil. This is an old tractor, and it consumes oil, leaks oil. So don't put too much money into it. Probably should change the oil and fix the oil leaks. Okay, we'll turn on the fuel. Check the tires. Good. Good. The drive belt's in place. The cog's engaged. So we should be all set to go. Okay, so I got a problem. This is not engaged properly. Although it looks to be engaged, it is not engaged. Okay, so got this apart and fixed. What happened is this came off down here, so it's offset, which rotates this up, which means it doesn't pull that collar in where it belongs. I've got it clamped, and it's fairly tight, and so I just drilled a hole through here and put a bolt in there to make it permanent. I never usually take this down the road or any place where I need to shut the rake off
It's usually always engaged going from my small field to small field. So yeah.
Now that I'm on this phase, which is just raking the hay over, getting it up off the ground, sat here for a few days to dry, and along the way the grass has grown up amongst the cut grass, so you have to separate it, get it up in the air. Here I take a look around and I see I think it's a hawk circle. It's one of the pleasures of raking hay. The hay rake is the same as when they had horse-drawn bar rakes like this. This particular model is an international and seems to work pretty well. Pretty happy with it. Once I fixed the problem with the mechanism in the back. It goes over rough ground pretty well, and I like when I turn. I had an old rake that was originally horse-drawn, and when you would turn it would really whip around and really mess up the rows. And again, just like mowing, you have a lot of time to think. You just kind of listen to everything go down, but you get to breathe and smell the freshness of the cut grass. It's similar to fresh cut lawns, but it's different because you have different species. You have the clover, you have the timothy, you have even some trefoil, orchard grass. With a great view like we have up here, you can look around, you can see, one day I could see a fire, turned out to be a Amish sawmill on fire. You just ride along and think about what else you have to do. And like I said though, it's really not that much different than being in a factory operating a machine, except you're out in the sun. And there's Mrs. Turkey again. I'm not quite sure what she's doing. Seen her around here for a few days. I don't know if she was trying to nest in the grass, but fortunately that's a fact of an open hayfield. You have wildlife that takes refuge in it. But the reason the hayfield is there is to be mowed and stored away. Yep, this is my equipment. This is a Papex silage wagon. I got it during COVID when equipment was really high. I paid about $1,000 for it. This New Holland kicker wagon, baler is from the 70s, and it's pretty darn nice. My Minneapolis Moline, I think, is a 70 model, and it served us well. It's hard to beat. You just keep oil in it, keep gas in it, and it runs. This is a bigger New Holland baler than some of the older ones, and it'll spit out bales pretty well. Last year I worked really hard to get this knotter working, and currently I have it working pretty well. It doesn't quite pull the string through on one of the knotters, but it makes bales. It cuts them square, so I'm really happy with it. So here we get ready to go with throttle up. You start the PTO. You start it slowly to get it going, and then snap it to the lock position. You choose your ground speed, so low gear is a choice for this. This Minneapolis Moline has a 23% down to the drawbar or the tongue of the wagon. I just have my kicker set to kick the bales straight, and so when I'm going around a corner, it ends up missing the wagon. Some will have a hydraulic cylinder on the kicker so you can aim the bale from the driver's seat. I may add that later on this year. I do stop occasionally and check the weight of the bales. You can just feel what you want. Sometimes people like to have lighter bales in the 30-pound range. Some people like them in the 60-pound range or more. I like them right around the 40 to 50-pound range if I can. 35 is okay too. When they get down in the 20s, that's when they get really soft. And even though it's a bale of hay, you really don't have that much. And then you're worried about your storage space, and it ends up being a whole bale for a horse. And so, yeah, making a 40 to 50-pound bale is kind of our target.
Yeah, well, here we are a few days later. I've got all the hay off this small field. It's about 3 acres, I think. Got 200 bales. For spring hay, for May hay, it's not bad. It's not bad. So let's look at the next job. Okay, so here's the next field. I'm not sure how large it is. I cut it in half over there. Today is Wednesday. I think it's the 30th. So I mowed on Monday. I mowed a little bit Monday night, late Monday night. And then I finished all the rest of it yesterday afternoon. So late yesterday, I raked the first 4 rows to see how they dry. And they did look pretty good. So then early this afternoon, about noontime, I took those 4 rows and I raked them into 2. Now, I always have the debate on whether I should mow the hay, ted it up the next day, rake it, Raking it kind of rolls it over, but sometimes it rolls it back over with the kind of rake I have. I don't have a centipede tedder. I just have my my fluffer tedder, which is right here. But yeah, I'm always kind of torn, so depending on how thick it is, I'll go through and I'll mow it, then I'll come back and I'll ted it, and then I'll rake it. And if it has to sit longer, I can ted it again. So what I've done here is this was mowed and raked over, and I'm going to ted it and probably bale it in an hour. And then I raked up 5 more rows for tomorrow, and I'm going to go through and ted that hay up. I'm probably going to try and ted the whole field. I'll try and bale those 5 rows tomorrow and then go on and do the rest of it on Friday. Well, here we are about an hour later, all set to go. Again, that's a double row, that's a double row, and the next 5 were raked last night, so they're for tomorrow. And then all the inside is tedded up. So first let's take a look at this hay. It looks pretty good here. And we'll do the old school test. Just touch it. You can feel if there's any wet spots. And here it's kind of crispy, so yeah, it's ready to go. You walk around a little bit. As you're raking it, you always look for green spots. Let's walk in here a little bit more. So again, these rows right here were cut at the same time, but were not raked over. And if we sit down and look at it a little closer, this feels dry, but you can still see there's some green clover right there. Yeah, the clover is still green. So yeah, that needs a little more time to dry. Which my plan is tomorrow. I'm not sure if I want to rake it again or just bale it. But yeah, it'll be for tomorrow at noontime. And then the rest in there is going to be for Friday. Yeah, and that's hay. That's the first cutting of hay for this year. So I'm going to wrap things up right here. Like they say, go down and subscribe. I appreciate a subscription. Like the video, leave a comment, ask a question. Like the eBayers say, 23 years in the eBay business. But in my case, I've been making hay my whole life. You don't need to ring the bell. If you want to learn about hay, I don't even know if you want to be here. But yeah, thanks for watching. That's the way I do it. When I was editing this video, I noticed that I left out the most labor-intensive part. Where does this hay go? Well, here's my most recent load from Thursday. And this is where it gets stored. Actually, that crack's not as big as it appears. But yeah, we mow it away. This barn holds up to 4,000 bales. We used to fill it that high, but when you go up higher, you have to walk on the bales and you need more help. So I like to just fill it here, stacking them 6 high. And hopefully that'll be enough. So yeah, this is where it ends up. Some good looking hay. It smells really good. So yeah, thanks for watching. This is what the hay actually is for. We do sell some hay, but it goes to our horses. This is our quarter horse Cooper, and that's our yearling filly. We call her Raven. So they consume the hay, and it's a circular motion. And then it cycles back through and goes back in the field where it came from.
Right there you go. One mouthful at a time.
Here's a little bit extra here, just because I'm out here. It's 9 o'clock in the morning, and if I look at the grass, here it's still dry, but it's just not quite as dry and crunchy. If you squeeze it, you can feel the moisture in it, you can feel the dampness. And the same way on the bottom. It's cold on the bottom, and that's because it's absorbed moisture out of the ground. So what we need to do before we bale is we let it sit and let it burn the moisture that's fallen on it on the top. Let that burn off from the dew. That probably happens pretty quick, maybe by 11 o'clock, depending. It's all relative. There's no set rule, but the moisture will burn out, and then we'll come out here and we'll just flip it over. And that'll let that moisture that's come out of the ground burn off too. So by flipping it and fluffing it and letting air into it. So then we'll be able to rake it. And again, that's not always the rule. It can depend on how much dew there was at night, how wet the hay was to begin with, and so on and so forth. Now, if you bale this the way it is, it may be just fine, or it may turn into a bunch of mold. The hay tells you. You have to check it out. There's no hard and fast rules. People always ask me, what time are we baling today? I go, when it's ready. When it's ready. So, yeah. So that is the final bonus footage. And again, thanks for watching.